This is Wealth Builders, presented by StatonWalsh, a show designed to pull back the curtain of the financial industry and bring true transparency to the forefront of conversation. On the show, we cover topics like financial education, current events, and interview business leaders and industry experts with the ultimate goal of helping listeners discover their own path to financial independence.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Wealth Builders. I'm Devin Walsh, and this is my business partner, Ryan Staton. We are the managing partner of Staton-Walsh. And in this week's episode, we are super excited to be talking about our story, why we started Staton-Walsh. Ryan, it's been a wild ride from that day in 2013 at our former boss's house, a company we started at, to going on this crazy adventure, starting this business during this pandemic and everything in between. So I'm really excited to bring you all kind of our story and the reasons we wanted to start this business, kind of disrupt the financial planning industry is really what our goal was, and bring true transparency and clarity to the masses. So Ryan, talk to us a little bit more about kind of what we've went through and kind of how we started and how we got to where we are today.
I like that opening. I'm really excited to talk about myself today. This is something obviously we're passionate about, and I would say that for this particular episode, this is kind of like our kickoff for our entrepreneur or our business owner series. Obviously, we're business owners ourselves, but part of this show, we're going to be interviewing other business leaders, other owners of businesses here with us in Baltimore, but also nationally. We have some great guests lined up. So this is just kind of the kickoff to that and the format of what that's going to be like. But to answer your question about our story, I mean, back in, I guess we met in 2013 at a firm where we worked together initially. And that was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. I think one of the nice things about that office was that there was a ton of younger people, which I think it had a good energy. We had some pretty good camaraderie there. And so that really helped kick off, I think, a journey that has certainly not been easy. It has been something that's been extremely difficult for a lot of different reasons. And ultimately, people have come and gone in the industry, and we're still alive and kicking, knock on wood. And even with a pandemic and everything going on, our business is still thriving, which, we're very blessed to say. But there's a lot that we do, we feel like is different. The whole idea you mentioned, disrupting the industry, that's always something from the day that we thought about working together in any capacity. There's always that thought process or that conversation about how can we be different? Now, how can we do it differently? How can we be against the grain? And we work in an industry that, while it's been around for hundreds of years, when you lump in the insurance industry, there's some insurance companies out there that have been around for 150 plus years. And that's kind of how we got our start working for a company like that. And you learn a lot of really good things in those environments. And you learn some things that, you kind of, as being the younger guys around, we're like, maybe that we could do this a little differently. Maybe there's something better that we can be doing, or, try to change or get ahead of the curve instead of just kind of adapting as things went along. And so I think that was the original birth of this whole idea of Staton-Walsh wasn't necessarily initially our end goal. It just kind of came out of years of conversations and talking and trying to figure out the best way to do it. And ultimately what ends up happening is when you work in organizations, you have a couple different options. For anyone who's an employee out there that has these thoughts, you can present an idea to your organization, and they're either going to love it and try to see how they can make it work, or they're going to reject it and say that we're not going to do that. So you have a decision to make at that point. It's, do we continue on the path that we're on, or do we believe so much in that idea or that philosophy that we're willing to take a risk and step out on our own and do it? And, that's a decision that every business owner and every person, employees too, have to make in their life. And that's one that we made. And I think we've been better for it. It wasn't always easy, of course, but Global pandemic obviously didn't help either. So
Did not have that in the business plan.
no, we did not. No, business, it definitely shifted our focus to business continuity in a different kind of way. And I think that's helped us, to be completely fair. I think that, as strange as it sounds, starting, the business was already established. We had already been doing this for a while, but kind of starting your own business just before we did it, a few months prior, 4 or 5 months prior to the pandemic really starting, with shutdowns, at least. We learned a lot about, getting something up and running. And then we also learned a lot about how things out of your control can take away from what you're trying to do. And then you immediately have to adapt and pivot. And so we got a lot of really good life lessons up front. And again, I'm thankful for that personally. I think that it really helped us. And now we're prepared that for the next, hopefully 30, 40, 50 plus years, that our company will be able to thrive and survive in any environment.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's almost a blessing in disguise. We were really able to really focus on how we wanted the client experience to be. I think we had maybe a little bit more time, doing all the Zoom meetings rather than driving an hour to a meeting or going to the office. There was all that time in between really allowed us to spend the extra time on the business and what does our client experience want to be like. So let's talk a little bit more about our process. And one of the reasons that, how we disrupt the industry. I know our tagline is financial clarity through transparency. Transparency is the base of absolutely everything we do in this practice, and always obviously put the client first. Let's talk a little more about our process and what transparency truly means to us, what that experience really is, whether it's an individual or a business owner we're working with. What does that experience look like when they're working with StatonWalsh?
Yeah, so transparency is ultimately the currency of trust in any relationship that you have. When you're fully transparent, people know that, they can feel that. I think it just builds a more trusting relationship. And we work in an environment where we're dealing with money. People's personal finances and businesses at a corporate level. We deal with some financial advice as well. And so when you're doing that, money is always a sensitive topic. It's one that people are very passionate about, both positively and negatively. And so we have to toe a very thin line when we're working with people, and there's a lot of trust that goes into that relationship. And so when you're doing that, it was only logical for us. I think it's always been logical that transparency is important. The way that we're doing it is a little bit different. I think we're taking, there's always a regulatory requirement in our business to be transparent to a certain point or a level. But usually that level of transparency is buried in disclosures and legalese. And, we always look at it from the consumer's point of view. If I was a client and someone handed me that stack of paperwork, would I actually read through it line by line before I signed it? The answer for most people, even for me, the answer would be no. And I'm a pretty big stickler for catches and things like I'm naturally a skeptic, full disclosure. So even for me, I don't know that I would read through all that and crunch numbers and figure out, what am I paying? How am I paying it? How's this person compensated? And those were things that we were like, there's got to be a way to make this easier. And so regulatory agencies have been trying for years to kind of move that needle, and they've been doing it, but slowly. We just felt like there was a different way where we could just get right to the point and say, look, here's how we get paid. Here's who you pay. Here's who we pay. Here's all the parties involved in this transaction, which we should all be doing anyway. And I'll be honest, there are a lot of advisors out there that do. We're just more committed to, I believe, and I can't speak for everyone, but in our practice, we're very committed to making sure that there's no catch, there's no hidden numbers. It's all out there in plain sight. Anytime a client asks, we're going to answer the question. Whether we make a lot or a little doesn't really matter to us. And we really want to remove the objection of the only reason you're making these recommendations is because they make you money. We have a model, we've built a process around. There's always going to be a way for us to make money because we're a business, obviously. And so that's part of running a business is obviously making money. But we give the client the opportunity to choose how they want us to be compensated. So that's a really big piece of our process. I'd say the other piece too is that when you work at a large firm, and this isn't a knock on anywhere that we've worked or any other firms that are out there, but when you're managing and training thousands and thousands of people, you have to have a standardized process. The problem with that is that not everyone's financial life is standardized in the same way. So taking everyone through a canned process doesn't always work. There's some customization that has to occur. And so our process is designed around full transparency and full customization. And so what we mean by that is we really dig down deep to figure out who you are as an individual and how can we take those individual traits that are important to you and make a process that's easily digestible, but also enjoyable, right? Like we don't want financial planning to feel like an exercise that's painful. There are going to be parts of the process that may be that way, but we look at it more like going to the gym for a workout. The first couple of weeks is going to be a little rough. You're going to have to get into a routine. You're going to be a little sore. Beyond that, you're going to start to really feel good about it. And that's what we want. We want you to kind of maintain that consistency and feel good about the process throughout. And so the only way we can do that is we have to know our client on a deeper level, number one. And number two, we have to make sure that we're flexible in the way that we want to conduct or that we're going to conduct business with them. Because ultimately, it's not my money, it's not your money, it's theirs. And so we're conscious of that. And that again goes back to our philosophy of if the shoe was on the other foot, how would we want to be treated? And so they sound like simple concepts, but sometimes they get lost in the shuffle. And we just felt like if we can piece all of these really good things together that we've learned throughout our time in the industry, we could make a really strong process that I think speaks to people all over the spectrum. And we talk about it all the time. We have clients in their mid-20s and we have a client that's in their mid-90s and everywhere in between. So our process can definitely work regardless of generation, willing to adopt technology, whatever other objection you want to come up with. There is a way to do it. It's just a question of having resources, offering them, and letting people use what they want to use to their advantage, and remove some of the other parts if they're not interested in that. And that's the customization piece.
Now, I think one thing I kind of want to go back on when you talk about really getting to know our clients. It's funny. When we send out, we have a questionnaire we send out after our first meeting to our clients, and the first questions aren't how much money you make, what's your job, or anything financial. It's what's your favorite food, who's your favorite band, what's your favorite play, what's your wedding anniversary. And I think people look at that and they come back like, "What? We weren't expecting those questions." But we truly want to know who our clients are because we're around the whole experience. Once again, on birthdays, we in the past we've donated money to people's favorite charities, and we want to know that. We want to know what their favorite sports are. So if we're talking to them, they're a big Orioles fan. So I think that kind of stuff just kind of factors into the whole experience. Very, very important.
Experience is everything. In today's world, technology has changed experiences of people where convenience is for some services or some service-based businesses, people are more concerned with convenience and less about service. But I think people still inherently want that. When we're talking about something as personal as managing finances and money, which is an emotional conversation, it's an emotional process, there has to be a little bit of human touch involved there just to make sure that obviously we're doing a good job, but also that we're being impactful and that we actually, it's a part of it is letting people know that we do care. We're human beings too. We're not just here to be bean counters, number crunchers, and say, save this for this long, earn this, you're good to go. I mean, that's an impersonal process. We want it to be personal. We want it to be customizable again. And, all of those pieces we really mesh together. Behavior is a huge part of it too. One of the reasons we ask those questions, as well as some other follow-up questions, is that most people's financial success is directly hinged on their behavior around money and nothing else. It has less to do with market performance and more to do with how do you participate in the market, for example. So making good or bad emotional decisions with your money, spending too much, too little, saving the wrong way, investing emotionally, moving money in and out of the market. These are all factors that there have been tons of studies out there that will attribute what causes investor success in a good way. And And so we've incorporated that into our process. We use some great technology to help assist with that, but ultimately it comes down to the human element. I mean, that's the most important piece of our process is the human element. And some of the other pieces, products, strategies, all those other things out there, we don't manufacture those. We just find the best ones for a particular situation, and we help clients implement. Everything in between comes down to our personal relationship and us really understanding what your goals, dreams are, how you behave or how you react to certain situations, whether it's investing or just your general spending patterns or things like that, where they get talked about, but not on a deep enough level that I think there's a mutual understanding of how the process could work. So that's a big piece of our process. We're very big and very forward thinking when it comes to behavioral finance. And that's something else in our process that we've really beefed up on and made sure that we spend a lot of time focusing on that, because that's where we find, clients experience the most success.
Yeah, exactly. And the behavioral finance and seeing how people really react to market situations goes along to the customization you talked about. A lot of times we have a 20 or 30 something come talk to us and say, do I have to be aggressive? And is that what I'm supposed to do? And we'll take them through our personalized risk questionnaire. Yeah. And it might not be as risky as they thought they were. And they're like, is that bad? No, of course not. Because everybody's different. Everybody has a complete different way to think about money. Sure. Something is really important too. And when talking about customizing how they engage us, we really have 4 different ways. People always ask, well, what's your minimum? It's not necessarily about minimum. There's ways that we can really service anybody, whether it's a monthly fee, whether it's the traditional assets under management model, whether it's an hourly plan fee. We have a business engagement, so all kinds of stuff. So don't think that just because you don't have $1 million in the bank, there's not somebody out there that you can contact for help. I think it's important to know that there's many different ways, not just us, but most like other advisors too. Just finding the right fit for you.
Yeah, there's tons of resources and technology. Another piece of that has to do with how people consume information. That's why the behavioral aspect is so important. 5 years ago, we talk about this all the time. 5 years ago, the way that business was conducted is complete 180 from then until now. I mean, DocuSign, e-sign, e-delivering documents, disclosures, things move quicker. And that's just the nature of the world that we live in. That's not just in our business, that's in all business. And so you have to be able to move with that. And so that's been a big piece of our process and adapting to the world. But also, making sure that there's resources available to people where they can consume information in real time. And so that's a piece of our technology package that we offer. You mentioned, kind of the subscription-based financial planning model, which is becoming more relevant. And that's one of the things that we've always tried to be on the forefront of that. I mean, that's just who we are. We want to be forward thinking. We want to come up with a grand idea and try to implement it. I mean, that's what we spend multiple days a week talking about those things. Obviously, that. So we're always on that plane. And when you're in some organizations, larger organizations, that you can't be as nimble. And there's things that you have to take into consideration: compliance, who's going to be doing what, oversight of, for us, a few people versus 3,000, it's a completely different circumstance. So, for us, I think that we were in a good position to be able to do that. And then technology, obviously, advances in technology have really helped enhance the offering that even human advisors, there's a lot of talk out there about online platforms, robos, things of that nature. But I think that we've even enhanced the value that we can bring as human advisors to our clients by just leveraging and using and making it's not a small investment, but making an investment in technology and making sure that we're constantly bringing and adding value to every person's life, that we cross paths with, if they decide to engage with us or not. We're out to educate, and we're out to continue to help, advance the community through financial education, whether that's a client of ours or doing, free financial education classes for companies or nonprofits or things like that. We do all kinds of great stuff. So with that, and that's a big part of our mission. And we found that it translates really well. I mean, having that educator's mindset going in to work with a client there's always seems to be a higher rate of success versus I'm an industry expert, listen to what I have to say, do what I tell you, and you'll be good to go. And that again just ties back into our personal process. And I think just to wrap that part up, it all sounds like common sense, but for whatever reason, like there's not very many people that do it, just being honest. And we have a lot of clients that are very appreciative of that. And the hope is that part of our disruption of this industry is that we can get more people to do that kind of stuff. I mean, that we're breeding potential competition by saying that, but the reality is that if we have people around us and other firms and in this area that are better, it makes all of us better. Breeds competition, makes us have to continue to advance and get better. And ultimately the benefactor of that, or the beneficiary of that, is the consumer and the investor. And so that's what's important to us, and that's why we do what we do.
Completely agree, Ryan. And I just think back to when we first started, like the stacks of papers that we had to have clients sign, how technology has evolved over just the last 8-9 years.
Talk about hand filling them out too, not even fillable PDFs.
And it really hampered our ability to go, we have clients in California across the country, multiple clients and around the country. And it hampered your ability to do that. Now we have Zoom and DocuSign, all those things that just make it so much easier for business. It's just
Sure.
It's amazing what technology has done in a short period of time in this industry. But well, thanks everybody. We really appreciate you as always listening today. Hope you enjoyed learning a little more about StatonWalsh, the reasons that we started, and our vision to kind of just disrupt this industry. So make sure you subscribe below on either Spotify or iTunes, and talk soon, everybody. Have a great week.
Awesome. Thanks.